programs I do too advanced. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Michelle and Malka. And whoever 195 is. Here we go. We can't get you to stay?
Sure.
You don't have to, no pressure. If you'd like to stay, you're welcome to. If you don't want, you don't have to. You might find it interesting. Take care, all the best. Okay. Hope everybody's well. This week's Parsha is Parsha's Sietze. Sietze has Sietze means when you go out. It's in the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy. Thank you very much, Alicia. Chapter 21, verse 10 through chapter 25, verse 19. It has 110 verses, and there's a total of 74 commandments in it, which is a lot of commandments. That's more than 10% of the 613 commandments. And we're going to go through some of these commandments today. The 27 positive and 47 negative. And what I'd like to do is, I don't know if I have enough copies, but I have one here. I have two here. That's three here. This is fine. Let's just have enough here. I'd like to go through some of the laws that are relevant in the Torah portion for this week. Now, there's a book called the Sefer HaChinuch, which is a book that goes through all of the commandments and where they're found in the Torah. So there's a synopsis that tells us just what the commandment is. So we're going to go through some of these commandments today. And some of them you may find very, very interesting. Let me see if I have a little Sheva. I have one from the Sheva. I found it. Not perfect, but it's good.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. All righty. So so again, the 613 commandments are found throughout the 5 books of the Torah. Some parshas have no commandments, some have one or two, and as we see here, we have so many. So mitzvah 532 of the 613 commandments is the mitzvah that if a person is attracted to, it's during wartime, and the person is attracted to a beautiful woman who's a captive in war, and many times the that was one way of fighting a war, is if you lose the battle, to try to have the women seduce the soldiers. So therefore, the Torah teaches us that if you want to marry her, you have to do some things to make sure it's not just a superficial relationship. She has to change her clothing and cut her hair.
Grow her nails.
I'm sorry?
She has to grow her nails. She can't cut her nails.
Yeah, it's a whole procedure. And there's a saying from our sages in Pirkei Avos, every love that's tied to something won't last, but a love that's not tied to something can last. What does that mean? In other words, if a person marries somebody because they're handsome or they have money, what's the problem with that? What happens is it may not last. Very good. Well said, Alicia. That's why it may not last. And then what happens to the love? Now, obviously, you have to, you should work at being attractive to the other person. You should look neat and nice. I remember my mother of blessed memory, every time when she heard my father was coming home from work, she'd go to the mirror and straighten herself out to make herself look nice, which is a nice thing that the person would do that. But at the same time, that can't be the entirety of the relationship. It can't be just based upon looks or money or external things. Attraction, like I said, is important before marriage and during marriage as well. We'll jump to mitzvah 535. When a person, capital punishment is actually, no, we'll talk about capital punishment first for a second, which is 536. Certain laws require a person to be killed, but the circumstances are very, very strict. There has to be two witnesses. The person has to be warned about it, and he has to acknowledge that he understands the ramifications of his choice. And it's very, very, very strict. As a matter of fact, the Talmud teaches us that there's an argument in the Talmud, if a court kills once in 7 years, one opinion says that's called a killing court. That's too much. And the other opinion says once in 70 years. So the circumstances of capital punishment was so strict that it was not simple at all for a person to be killed, but it was something that's there. And the Torah tells us which mitzvahs, which commandments are very important that a person should be cognizant of. Now, interesting, one of them would be when a person is hung. But if a person is hung, he cannot be left hanging overnight. Why? Very beautiful idea, because man is created in the image of God. And even if he was a terrible person, he was a murderer, they don't keep him hanging for a few days, because man is created in the image of God. And the sages give us a beautiful example of this. Imagine there's a guy who is a terrible person and he's hung, and he's a twin of the prince. So it's a degradation of the prince if this guy's going to remain hanging long. What do you mean? He's not the prince, he's the twin brother, but he looks like the prince. So we are created in the image of God, and therefore we can't be hung either. For more overnight, because it lessens Hashem's the law of burying somebody. Very important. As fast as possible. We don't draw out burial. It's a merit for the soul to be buried as soon as possible. We don't delay the burial as much as possible. Sometimes if there's a family far away and that they're very close to that person, and it'll be meaningful for that person to have that family there, so then you'll delay a little bit. But usually we try to do it that day as much as possible or as soon as possible. It's not like, oh, I want to wait for 2 weeks because Uncle Harry's on a cruise. No. body passes away, try to do it as soon as possible. Cremation, no, not allowed by Jewish law. Very important to be aware of that. Speak to family members about that. There's a wonderful book by Doron Kornbluth about not to cremate the body. It's not respectful for the soul and or the body. And the body isn't ours. And by the way, what happens if a person writes in his will that he wants to be cremated?
No.
We don't listen to him. We don't listen to him because the body is not ours. That's why we don't do suicide. That's why we don't do abortion. It's not ours. We can't do whatever we want. It's up to God about what we're supposed to do. So I had a story several years ago that moved me very much. I had a woman call me that she said she was terminally ill and she doesn't want to be a burden to her family. She wants to know if it's okay to be cremated. I did not know this woman. She called me. I don't know how she got my number. And I explained to her no, and I talked to her about it, and I sent her the book. I didn't hear anything from her. Like a year later, I got a call. This is so-and-so. I'm the daughter of so-and-so. She had spoken to you, and she passed, and she bought a plot in a Jewish cemetery, and she asked that you officiate at her funeral. And I was very honored, and I did, because she followed through and had a regular kosher burial in the cemetery, which is the right way to do it. And also, I mean, there's just a side thing that's a nice thing. We believe in Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead. Persons in a body, they have a chance to come back. They're cremated, it's harder. Not for God, but that's one of the reasons, one of many, many reasons not to. Okay, mitzvah 538 and 539. The mitzvah of returning lost objects. Very special mitzvah. There was the newspaper, this goes back a few years, had a lost and found. Free ads that they put into the Jewish newspaper. Blue Canon camera in case, Sunday, August 2nd, Marine Park. Bracelet in Borough Park in Brooklyn. Denim McLaren carriage with a street. Diamond bracelet, diamond ring, gold, white, blue, blue jumper. It's amazing. Found. People find things. They want to return it. And a whole list here. Car key and remote. Camera. Box to the roof tied to a car that fell off. Bag with shells in it. You know, just jewelry. Just amazing, amazing stuff. There's actually, let's see if I have it. I had it here last night. And I was looking over. There's an organization called Yid Find. Yid Find, Yid means a Jew. And you can Google it. And people put up stuff that they found. And when people put up stuff that they lost to see if people could find it. Again, this is a mitzvah free of charge. And the person who says it's his has to give some sort of identification to let us know that actually it's his, identify the item. But there's a big mitzvah in returning a lost object. The Gemara has a beautiful story. The Talmud teaches us a story about a man who had a bag of chickens, live chickens, and he was laying down and resting outside someone's house. And he woke up in the start, he woke up late, and he ran and he left the chickens behind. And a rabbi found the chickens and took him into his house and started raising them and taking care of them. And guess what happens when you have a bunch of chickens? You got more chickens. And when you have more chickens, what happens?
You get more chickens.
You get more chickens. Eventually, it became too much of a headache. And he sold them and he bought goats. Because the goats are easy to take care of. They graze on their own. And, X amount of time later, a man comes by and says, "Hey, this is the place where I left my chickens. Let me knock on the door and find out if somebody found them." He knocks on the door and says, "Do you by any chance find the chickens here?" Says, "Yes, we did. Can you give me a sign?" "Yeah, it was wrapped in a blue thing with a knot on it, you know." "Great, come, let me give you chickens." And he opens up the yard and he says, "Here they are." And the goats come marching out. He says, "Goats? I said chickens." I said, "I know, but the chickens were too much to take care of, so we have goats instead. And he gave him his chickens back in the form of goats. The Yerushalmi brings an interesting story about a queen who lost some jewelry. And she said, whoever brings it within 30 days will get rewarded. After 30 days, they'll get punished for taking so long. So a great sage comes on day 31 and brings the jewelry back to the queen. And the queen says, what's going on here? Why didn't you bring it earlier? And why are you bringing it now? So he said, had I brought it during the 30 days, you may have thought I was doing it because I want the reward or I don't want to get punished. I'm doing it because the Torah teaches us to return lost items, and therefore I didn't want to reward it, and so I'm bringing it now just to give it to you. And the queen was very impressed and praised the God of the Jewish people. Interestingly enough, there was a sweet story about anyone know what a phone booth is?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Murray, you remember that from the old days?
Yeah.
Eva doesn't know what a phone booth is, but there is phone booths, and a man went into the phone booth, and there was a book there, a daytimer. You know what a daytimer is? Like before people had it on their phones, they had books that they had all their information. And the man found the book, and he didn't have the woman's name who belongs to, but it said mom on it with a phone number. So he called long distance. In those days, they charged for long distance. He called mom and says, Mom, this is whatever his name was, Chaim Greenberg. I found your daughter's book and in the phone book, and it doesn't have her name and number on it. Please let her know that we have it, and she should call us, and we're happy to give it to her. And says, why are you calling? He says, well, it's a mitzvah in the Torah that to return a lost object. You know my daughter? Says, no, if I knew your daughter, I'd call her directly. I don't have her number. And the daughter calls her up and says, thank you so much. I'm going to come to your house to pick it up, to the couple's house. And they said, fine. What can I get you? I said, don't get us anything. It was our pleasure to fulfill this commandment. Don't get us anything. Okay. She comes to the couple's house and with a very big bouquet. And they tell her, we told you, don't get us anything. She says, no, I'm not giving you a gift because you found my book. I'm giving you a gift because you found my mother. Says, I'm sorry? Says, I wasn't raised religious, and my mother's not religious. And when I became religious, my mother was very upset at me. She thought I went off the deep end. But she said, if someone took the time in your community to call somebody that they didn't know, to get your number, to return something, maybe there's something special that you're involved with here. And I judged it too harshly, too quickly. And therefore, she reestablished a relationship with the daughter. So the daughter said, I'm bringing the bouquet as a gift to you, not for my daytimer, but for returning my mom to me. Very sweet story. Interesting halacha. To help someone who is unloading a donkey's, let's say, carrying heavy things, and they're trying to unload it, and you're walking by, you're supposed to help them unload it. What happens if someone is loading a donkey? There's another mitzvah to help them load. Okay, so here is an interesting hypothetical. Let's say you're walking down the street and one person is unloading their donkey and the other person is loading their donkey, and you can only help one. Who should you help?
Unloading.
Why?
You were talking about pain or something?
Excellent, very good. That's correct. Tsar b'lechaim. There's pain for the donkey, so by unloading, you're helping the donkey, and that comes first before loading up the other donkey. Very good. But there is an exception to this rule, an interesting exception. The exception is, what if the guy who's loading is your enemy, your Jewish enemy, and the one unloading is, your friend, or you don't know? What's the priority then? Then it switches. Then you help the loading first, because to try to make amends with the enemy is important. And therefore the loading would then come first before the unloading, which is an interesting law. All right. The prohibition of not a man shouldn't wear woman's clothing and a woman shouldn't wear man's clothing. This should be a distinction in dress. Mitzvah 546 is put a fence on the roof, and this is anytime there's a balcony or a fence, then you have to have a balcony or a roof that people walk on. Then you have to have some sort of fence so that people don't fall down, don't get hurt. There's a mitzvah of not putting a stumbling block in front of the blind. So the simple understanding means don't put a rock in front of someone who's blind who's walking. But that's a pretty obvious law not to do that. But the deeper understanding of it is giving somebody intentionally bad advice. Giving people bad advice. That's something that is also putting a stumbling block in front of somebody else. There's a prohibition, mitzvah 550, of not having two different animals working the field together, like an ox and a donkey. Why not? One of the reasons is very interesting, because the ox chews its cud, and the donkey does not. So the donkey say, hey, how come he got food and I didn't get any food? So, and the Sefer Chinuch adds something interesting, that working together people make sure when you hire people that they can get along together with each other. Because if you're putting people with different personalities and sometimes cultures, but if you put different personalities together, it may not work. So therefore, try to think about this when you're hiring people to work as well. A mitzvah of marrying a Jewish person. So the requirement is really a man is required to get married, a woman is not, but obviously it's a good thing and recommended. And there are laws about how to do this properly. And there's a beautiful saying from the sages in the Gemara in Yevamos. It says, our sages taught about a husband who loves his wife as himself, who honors her more than himself, who and if you leads his son and daughters in the right way, marries them off early, and you should know that your tent is at peace. A verse from Eve. So the idea of loving his wife as much as himself and honoring her more than himself is very beautiful. And there's, again, like I said, a bunch of laws related to this. He has to provide her with food, clothing, and lodging. Has to cohabit with her, pay for medical treatments, redeem her if she's captured by the Gentiles. If she dies before him, he has to pay for the funeral, etc., etc., etc. Many interesting laws related to the importance of how to treat a wife properly. The mitzvah of not taking interest on a loan. Not to take interest. You're prohibited from taking interest on a loan. As a matter of fact, there is a concept called a gemach. Gemach is a Hebrew word is really an acronym, stands for Gemilas Chasadim, acts of loving kindness, and in it talks about lending people money at no charge. Now, there's an organization called Ozer Dalim in Israel, and I'll just give you this is dated already. What I'm telling you, information is probably more now. They operate 39 all-volunteer staff branches, extending free loans with warmth and dignity to the poor, proud, and who don't want to take charity. Administer 3 loans for apartments. Free financial counseling and debt consolidation centers. It's just a very beautiful, beautiful idea. Now there is this thing called gemachs now that have been expanded to other areas, which is very, very interesting. Which means a free loan society, like in Los Angeles, we have what's called a wedding gown gemach. Wedding gowns are expensive, so but if you can borrow one, even if it costs a little bit to tailor it and to clean it afterwards, that's saves a lot of money. And there's people come up with creative ideas for gemachs, free loan society. Someone who's a baby gemach, they don't lend out babies, but they give baby equipment, 6-week loans, different locations around in the United States. The GPS gemach, if you don't have, you're going on a trip, you need a GPS. Volunteer tutors to teach those who can't afford help. And the list goes on. There's just so many. If you look, and the larger the Jewish community, the more opportunities they have. If you go to the Jerusalem phone book and you look up gemachs, you'll see a list and list and list and list. There was a fellow who I don't know where this was. I think this may have been back east in New York area. He wanted to open up a gemach, but he couldn't figure out because he saw there was a ladder gemach and a table gemach. There were so many gemachs, and he decided he's going to open up a gemach, which means you call him up and you ask him, "Can you help me find X, Y, and Z?" And he tries to help you find somebody who's going to loan it to you free of charge. And just very, very sweet. It's a very beautiful mitzvah. I know someone here in town who has a mezuzah gemach. What's a mezuzah gemach? What happens is you move into a house in California. So if it's a little bit bigger, there's so many doorways, you need a lot of mezuzahs. And mezuzahs are expensive. They're not cheap. It's handmade, and it has to be done kosher. It's a big job. And it could be, if you need 20 mezuzahs or 15 mezuzahs, it's a lot of money. So he has a bunch of mezuzahs, and he'll loan it to you. And then slowly you'll buy new ones for yourself. The mitzvah of keeping vows, keeping your word. Here's, the importance of if you hire a worker, they're allowed to eat in the place of their work, but they can't take it home. In other words, let's say the guy's working a field and he's picking peaches off for you. So he's allowed to, when he's hungry, he can grab a peach and eat it himself. He's not stealing, but he can't start taking bags home for himself, for his family, for his friends, because that's not his. The importance of a kosher divorce, because a person is bound to his spouse until there's a kosher divorce. A kosher divorce means it has to be done properly. It's a very beautiful story of Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky. His father served as the chief rabbi in London. One of the nights the Germans bombed London, thousands of bombs fell on the city during the course of the Germans' attack. And Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky heard that the building housing the court was bombed as well. And he pleaded with his son to travel with him to the spot at once, as the safe in the building contained a divorce document for a Jewish soldier who had left with him before leaving with his army platoon. Now, why would a Jewish soldier fill out a divorce document before he goes out to war? Can anyone figure it out?
If he dies.
In case he dies and they don't know where his body is, and they don't know, no one saw that he died, his wife is still bound to him. Does everyone understand what I just said? Isaac, you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what the guy did was he filled out a letter, he filled out a divorce, so that if he's not going to return, that she won't be bound to him and not be able to remarry. So Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky went and climbed up the thing was destroyed, the stairwell was destroyed, but he took a ladder and he looked in the ruins, and he was very nervous, his son, and his face was shining. He says, I got it. So this way, I don't want a Jewish daughter to be stuck and not be able to remarry. Very, very, very beautiful. The importance of paying a person on time. You're not supposed to muzzle an animal when they're working. Let the animal eat as well. All right, this one is a very sore mitzvah for me. A mitzvah for a person to save another person who's being pursued by a killer. Why is this a hard one for me? Because during World War II, there was not enough that was done to save the Jewish people. As a matter of fact, in 1943, Orthodox rabbis marched on Washington to ask President Roosevelt to bomb the tracks and to bomb the crematoriums and the gas chambers. And what is very upsetting is that the president refused to meet with them. Why? Because his advisor, a prominent member of the American Jewish Committee, and Dr. Stephen Weiss, president of the American Jewish Congress, were embarrassed by the protesters and didn't want the president to meet with them, because these were more elegant, secular leaders. And as Judge Rosenman said, he wanted to stop them from the horde from storming Washington. And he said, a group of rabbis who recently left the darkest period of medieval world. It's a parade, a painful and even lamentable exhibition. And what a terrible thing to say. The people, these rabbis maybe look different than you, and they dress differently than you, but they're coming here to plead for the Jewish people. What are you doing for the Jewish people? And because of them, Roosevelt did not meet with them. And there's a book, by the way, a book by Arthur Morse called While 6 Million Died. And Jews worked, the religious community worked very hard. They needed to raise funds. They tried to raise funds, even though the Allies were against them using money. They wanted to pay the Germans, bribing them to let Jews out. And there were people like Mike Tress, and you know, there is a real shame. And we have some books here in the library called To Save a Soul. The 2-volume book, different people, very fascinating reading of different people who did amazing things to save Jewish people during the war. Really amazing things. One of them was Nechama Sternberg. She lives in Switzerland. And one thinks, oh, the Swiss, they were neutral. They were not neutral, because if Jews escaped into Switzerland, and they would take them and give them back to the Germans. And it was her son's bar mitzvah, and she got word that 2 Jews that escaped into Switzerland were arrested by the chief of police. And she turned to her son and said, I'm sorry, we have to leave, and drove on Shabbos, which normally we don't drive on Shabbos, but drove on Shabbos to her house, got money, went to the chief of police, paid him off, and got these 2 Jews out before they was transferred back to the Nazis to save a life. You do what you do to save a life. So, I mean, to me, when I think of Temple Stephen S. Weiss, it just eats me up, because why are we honoring this guy? But it is what it is. And yes, the halacha is that we're allowed, if someone's attacking someone to kill them, we're allowed to stop them, physically stop them, and even necessarily even kill them if we have to. Mitzvah 602, not to have deficient weights and measures. You have to make sure that the weights and measures are honest. In the city of Telz, the rabbi checked the weights and measures, and the non-Jews wanted him to do it for them too. So there is and don't have mercy on the person who's intending to kill. And we don't even keep scales that are deficient around, because God forbid it may be used one time. And the other mitzvah here is to remember the wicked nation of Amalek that tried to destroy the Jewish people. And the opening sentence of the parsha is Sietze lemilchama, when you go out to war. Well, none of us here are soldiers, so why do we need to learn this war about this? And the idea is really we all are soldiers, because we all have a battle. The battle that we each fight every single day. And the battle is with the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. Very good. That's right. The evil inclination. The evil inclination is part and parcel of with us. Everybody has one. And the evil inclination is a chameleon. You never know what he wants you to do. He's always trying to find something else that you should do wrong. And therefore we have to be careful when there's a battle going on that we have every single day in our lives, that we should be prepared and understand that we're going to be tempted in many, many, many ways. I know a rabbi who was in a car with somebody. The rabbi asked him, do you have a car? Do you have a pen? The guy says, oh, yeah, I have a box of pens here. He says, why do you have a box of pens? Oh, I got it from work. So did you get it with permission? I need permission. Yes, you do. And the man was very inspired by the fact that the rabbi didn't want to use the pen because it was stolen property. So it's really important. It's important to realize that we all face a battle of one sort or the other. How am I going to spend my time? What am I going to do what does the evil inclination want me to do? And to make sure not to succumb to what the evil inclination wants. And if we do, to repent and do better next time. Okay, a lot of different laws, a lot to learn, but we touched on a lot of different things, and I'm open for questions or comments or thoughts. Questions, comments, or thoughts? Going once? Going twice? Going 3 times. Hayat? Hi, Dan. My wife met your son. You know about it? Did he tell you? Yeah.
He did. He did.
Yeah. Okay. Very nice.
They
Could
were.
I ask a- Oh,
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
I forgot where they were, but he told me.
He was ice skating. He was teaching. He was giving
I
ice
was
skating
teaching
lessons.
hockey. Yes, to
And
from kids.
my wife took some of my grandkids there to the ice skating meet. She met him, so it's very nice.
That's
Someone
good.
else wanted to say something?
I wanted to ask a question, Rabbi.
Go
That the
ahead,
book, the
Michelle.
book that you mentioned, Nebuch, on cremation,
Yes.
would that be a book for somebody who is not, doesn't believe and, and they're planning to do that?
Yes,
And
100%. The Rome
Uh-huh.
Club writes something that people could everyone should be able to relate.
if they don't believe in anything, I don't know.
It's worth a shot.
Okay. Yes, thank you.
It's worth a shot. That's what I
Thank
would
you.
say. You're
Mhm.
very welcome. He has a lot of good stuff that he wrote. He wrote a lot of good books that could be helpful. Yeah. Any other questions, thoughts, comments?
I'll ask you, Rabbi, is
Yes.
there a law that when you borrow money from somebody, you have to know that you'll be able to pay it back in a short period of time? Is there any kind of stipulation before you borrow?
Ideally, a person is not supposed to borrow unless they foresee that they're going to be able to pay it back. Now, a short period of time is already sounds like you lend somebody money and they're not paying it back. It depends how long the loan is for. So, take the thing on top. Which one? That's easy if you take the thing on top. So it depends. It depends also who the person is. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes family members take a little license with that sometimes, but let's back up a little bit. Normally, a loan, if you don't say agree to amount of time, is usually 30 days. But generally, people are not borrowing for 30 days. People are borrowing for longer, and therefore there should be a time. Now, sometimes a person borrows and they have an intention of paying back, and things happen, expenses come up, and this and that, and they can't pay back. So again, there's a way of dealing with it so that it doesn't cause cause distress and stress. I would recommend, especially if it's somebody you're close to get somebody involved with. But normally, the person shouldn't borrow unless they. I mean, there's an old joke about this guy who needed money. He was very poor, so he would borrow money from like one Gemach, one free loan society, and then when he had to pay it back, he went to Gemach B and paid back A, and then when he needed money to pay B, he went to C and paid back B, and then when it was time to pay C and he didn't have money, he went to D. The free loan society D and pay back. And after a while, he called everybody to his house, says, "Look, I'm getting too old for this. You guys just lend each other the money. I don't leave me out of the picture." But look, there's circumstances, that it's important to realize that some people their intention is to pay back and they sometimes can't. But like I said, if it's an issue that's I know an organization a charitable organization borrowed money from my brother, blessed memory, many years ago, and they never paid him back, and he was very disappointed. And he said to them, "I know you're a charitable organization. I know you're doing good work, but I'll tell you what you did to me. Why I'm upset at you. I'm not upset that you didn't give back the money. I'm upset at you because now if a different charitable organization is going to come ask me for money, I'm going to have to say no." Now he didn't have money himself either. That's a separate issue. But I'm going to have to say no because you ruined it for me to be able to lend somebody else money. So it was an interesting thing. But what I would say is if it's a family issue or somebody close to a close friend, I recommend you get somebody involved, because sometimes people take without intending to, they take advantage because look, the circumstances are much that they understand, we need the money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So as a general rule, to answer your question, to summarize, as a general rule, a person should not borrow money. It should be clear the amount of how long the time of the term of the loan is, A, and B, a person shouldn't do it unless they have an idea, a significant idea of how Mitzvah Hashem it's going to be paid back. But on the other hand, if a person can't pay it back, they should be worked with to try to work it out. Maybe there's payments they could make. Maybe a rabbi should be involved. So I hope that answers your question, Malcolm.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very welcome. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay, have a great week, everybody. Take
You
care
as
of
well.
yourself. All the best, Diane, Malka.
Thank you.
Eva, you're not so far. Come on down. Take care, Michelle. All the best. Bye, everybody.